What does it take for your athletes to become stronger? In this video, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know when it comes to making stronger athletes, guaranteed. For years, coaches have debated on what we actually need to assess when looking at strength. Is it a 1RM? Is it a max thigh pull? Is it multiple rep maxes? But first, we have to define what strength actually is. Strength is the amount of force an athlete can produce. Now, there's one caveat to this definition. It's not movement specific. That means in every movement, some athletes are going to be better than others, or themselves. If an athlete is going to produce so much force on two legs, then they are going to be able to produce on one. This means there has to be a different definition. So the way I define strength is how much an athlete produces force in a specific movement pattern. This now encompasses the understanding that every type of movement we do, from a back squat to a barbell RDL to a deadlift, will always change depending on the athlete's ability to do that specific movement. Now that we have the definition, we can then look at what actually goes on from a day-to-day standpoint to allow the athletes to become stronger. There are two main adaptations when it comes to strength. We have morphological or physical, and we have neurological or the nervous system. So when we think about morphological adaptations, we're going to really look at the muscles, the tendons, and ligaments, and even bone as well. We have to understand that morphological changes are going to happen regardless of if we want them or not. Take example of muscle is probably the easiest one to look at. When we lift weights, we're going to put tension on the muscles. The muscles are going to grow. They're going to become bigger. This allows the potential for more force to be able to be produced, which then allows the athlete to be stronger. Now, when it comes to ligaments, tendons, and bones, they're going to become stronger purely for the fact that they have to resist the forces that are being put on the body by the muscles from the external load or the exercises that they're actually doing. When we look at morphological adaptations, we're going to be focusing on two main variables: mechanical tension, metabolic stress. Mechanical tension is going to be driven by external load, or how much load you are lifting on the barbell, dumbbell, or kettlebell. Metabolic stress is the time you are spending in that exercise. That's going to be driven by sets, reps, and tempo. Let's look at an example of the glutes and the hamstrings. When we look at two exercises, let's say the barbell RDL and a 45-degree back extension, they're both training the glutes and the hamstrings through hip flexion and extension. Yet, when we look at the barbell RDL, we're using a barbell which is meant to be loaded heavy for the barbell RDL, whereas the 45-degree back extension, we don't have to load it. So what does this do? The barbell RDL will bias mechanical tension. We're able to load the bar heavy, which then allows us to be able to drive more load and create more mechanical tension and allow the athlete to get stronger. Whereas the 45-degree back extension, we can't load it as much as we can at barbell RDL, so that's going to bias mechanical or metabolic stress. It's going to allow us to do more on time in that position. So when we think about a volume standpoint, when we think about the barbell RDL, we're going to have high load, 2 to 3 sets of 2 to 3 reps to create as much mechanical tension as possible. Whereas with the 45-degree back extension, we may go 4 sets, 20 reps with a very high tempo to force the athlete to have more time and build up metabolic stress for that exercise. So when it comes to morphological, remember we have mechanical tension and we have metabolic stress. And we can train both of these on 2 different days throughout the week, but train the same musculature. Now we're going to talk about neurological adaptations. Why is neurological adaptation so important? From a nervous system standpoint, Our brain communicates to the body to contract, relax, or be able to resist specific forces when our body is interacting with our external environment. So, how do we do this? There are two main variables: repetition rate and unpredictable coordination. With repetition rate, it's the exposure that the athlete has to a specific movement pattern over a given week. Take example of a deadlift. If you had an athlete deadlift on Mondays, let's say 4 by 10, they're getting 1 day a week of exposure with 40 total reps. Now, with repetition rate, if we were able to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, doing 3 sets of 3 on each day, we're now increasing the repetition rate to 3 days a week and 48 total reps. This is more days, more exposure, more reps to allow the athlete to be able to actually learn the movement and produce more force. Now, here's the best thing about the repetition rate. Because we're going to look at max force production for strength, the closer we are to actually being able to produce the most amount of force, the better and quicker the athletes will actually become stronger. If we look at the example of 4 by 10, the weight is going to be so low compared to 3 by 3 because the athlete will not be able to get anywhere near their 1 RM with 10 reps to do. But with 3 reps, that's going to be much closer. This closer variance will allow the athlete to produce more force in a shorter amount of time, so they will become stronger with better reps because their body is going to learn how to contract, how to relax, how to move with heavier loads over time in a better way. Whereas with the 4 by 10, it's going to be so light that they're really not going to learn what it means to actually be able to produce force. They're just trying to get that set done. Now, when we look at unpredictable coordination, it is the training where the athlete doesn't know what's happening next and they have to react to that external stimulus. This would be anything that is projectile. So think of a med ball. Any drill where the athlete has to react, so being thrown a med ball or throwing a med ball off the wall and having to catch it and being able to stabilize, is going to be a great unpredictable coordination drill. Why is this so important? Because take this example. If you're a single leg med ball throw, you're standing there, you have 8 pounds, you're throwing it, you're releasing the med ball, which now the body is 8 pounds lighter because the med ball is not on you anymore. But now you're having a med ball coming back to you. The second it hits your fingertips, your pelvis, your musculature of the body is going to try to communicate and stabilize and create force in that position to not fall over. Now, what this does is because that's such a high degree of demand on the body, that's going to be easier to then go to a deadlift in a training session where our 2 feet are on the ground and we know exactly how to coordinate ourselves in that specific movement. That's where, from a neurological standpoint, it is important to know that these things are going to be more unseen than seen, unlike the morphological adaptations. How do we put this all together? Here's a simple template to follow. In the warm-up, include an unpredictable drill. From a med ball to a tennis ball, or from a reactionary auditory standpoint for the athlete to do. From a repetition rate standpoint, give them multiple exposures to a specific movement pattern. This means programming on 2 or 3 days a week so the athlete can get that exposure early and understand how to move their bodies in space. For mechanical tension, select 1 day or one of those movement pattern days to be able to drive mechanical tension. Select the best exercise that allows the athlete to drive the most amount of load. Lastly, select a day that is a metabolic stress day, which then allows the athlete to drive metabolic stress in that same movement pattern, just on a different day. This means throughout a week, for every movement in the body, we can go through this simple template, which then allows the athlete to become stronger in a shorter fashion and guarantees you to have stronger athletes in the future. And remember, systems drive success, so start building.